So it seems like Felix Sater's incompetent legal team is crashing and burning in court. That's what I see. You never know how these things are going to go, but seems like he's losing. Every day it seems like he's losing. So I have some more notes from today. I was there in the morning. I had something to do this afternoon, so you know it's hard to stay on top of the whole thing, but as I said, it's better than nothing. I'm trying to spend as much time there as I can, and some of the people who I thought might have been reporters, it turns out, are just law school students. And so when I left off yesterday, basically Robert Wolf had said that Sater wanted to do whatever he could to keep his name out of this CAA, the confidential, what does the thing stand for? Confidential Assistance Agreement. Welcome to the native meadow. We can pretend we're outside. Holy cow, it's way hotter inside here than it is even just on that path. Why is that? Are these plants somehow? Oh. Okay, so anyway, I hope the phone doesn't overheat. It is hot. But it's, by the way, Kathy Hochul, I think today is the first day of summer or the second day of summer. It's hot in the summertime. You know, it's like 90. But that's not anything really unusual. So okay, we started up again this morning with Robert Wolf testifying again, and we know a little bit more about Robert Wolf right now. He said yesterday that he's been in practice for 41 years, which I found surprising because he's young and fit looking, but he's got to be in his 60s. And he gave us a little more insight into that today. Says he doesn't drink. Definitely helps you stay youthful and healthy. He's a lean, fit-looking guy. So anyway, he was saying they were talking about this cooperation agreement, which said that Litco would be paid $100,000 a month for a minimum of 12 months. So if he found all the money in a month, he was still getting 1.2 million. But it was like, whichever of these is more, that's what he's going to get paid. 120,000 per month, and then plus 16% of whatever it is that they recover. Because remember, there was billions of dollars stolen from this bank, and then they're now trying to recover it. And so they're entering this agreement with all these private investigation firms and forensic accountants and all this different kind of stuff for people looking for money and trying to unravel the scam. And I don't think that this has really been drawn out in court yet, but the impression that I'm starting to get is that it seems like Sater knew all about where to find the money, because he might have known something about how it got stolen, if you know what I'm talking about. That's my impression. That has not been proven in court, but it looks to me like that might be what's happening. So he negotiated this 16% fee with Latham and Watkins. They were originally representing BTA Bank, the City of Almaty, and the nation of Kazakhstan. I think this is Shakespeare. No. Oh, well, it says JQA Ward. Is that Shakespeare, you think? It's gotta be, right? I don't know who Ward is. Yeah, it says William Shakespeare, Central Park. Full standing portrait of the celebrated playwright. Well, there he is. So anyway, Latham and Watkins. And this was a really interesting second day with Mr. Wolf. Now, he had explained to the judge yesterday, after the cross-examination went on longer, that he could come back today, but that his wife was having some sort of surgical procedure and he needed to leave. He seemed to indicate that he wanted to be out of there before noon, but somehow that became noon, and he got out of there later than noon. And it just, I don't know, there was this tension that was building where people were getting pissed off, and it was an interesting thing. But there's this guy, Peter Garci, who is part of that Arcanum. Remember, that was the international intelligence company. These private intelligence companies are interesting things. Like Christopher Steele has Orbis Intelligence. There's Columbus, sailing the ocean blue. Right, Arcanum is a company that employs all these ex-intelligence people, which always makes me think about stuff like the Brookings Institution and all of these stupid think tanks that do that. I don't think any of those things are any good. So, I mean, it's almost like if you investigate 5, 10, a dozen of these things, and they're all populated by, you know, sinister former intelligence people who only ever do evil, crooked stuff, you can understand why I feel like it's probable that this thing is similar. But it's like, it seems to me that we've got this Arcom, it's not Arcom, it's Arcanum is the intelligence company, and that thing is negotiating this contract. Now remember, the point at issue here is Felix Sater is saying, hey, you guys don't want to pay me. I helped you recover all this money. And they are saying, no, wait a minute. We did not understand that this company, Litco, that was signing to this agreement, had anything to do with Felix Sater, and they have accused Felix of stealing the money. So you could understand why they don't want the guy who stole the money looking for the money, and they just, you know, there's something screwy going on here, and more of it came out. So there's this guy, Peter Garci, and he was at the Arcanum meeting with Latham and Watkins, and it was an agent for BTA Bank, Arcanum, and the City of Almaty, Kazakhstan, and the government. And Litco was blocked from providing a witness. Right, so they said you can't provide witnesses who are owners of Litco, because there was also a section where certain people were released. And they're now trying to establish if Felix Sater is subject to this release or not. So that's sort of the direction this argument is going in, of does this language about, you know, people who are witnesses provided by Litco can't be, you know, that's what they're arguing about. So Peter Garci, yeah, see, this is what really got me thinking that Arcanum is working with, secretly, Felix, because Peter Garci added this line about not releasing Ablazov entities and Krapanov entities. And I'm still trying to wrap my brain around this. This is just sort of like an information dump, because it's hard to understand what's going on, and I think there's a lot of people who are lying about it. Snyder asked about Sater becoming a witness, and that was objected to for asking about stuff that happened after June of 2015. So that's it. It's like there was this like handoff of this handling of this agreement, that they had a lawyer for the bank who was hired in 2013, so they weren't allowed to ask her anything about stuff before 2013, and this guy, I guess, wasn't representing Felix after 2015, so they had a motion in limine, which, as I understand it, is a thing that allows them to define limits of what evidence can be explored. Like, you can't just go ask this guy anything and everything. He is not involved after June of 2015, so they've limited it where he can't talk about that. And this guy, Peter Garci from Arcanum, he's the one who added the part about not releasing Ablazov entities and Krapanov entities. And then there's all this effort being gone to about trying to figure out exactly, you know, what that encompasses. Like, what is an Ablazov entity? And they went through some of these companies, and they're talking about whether they are or are not controlled by Ablazoff. And see, that's interesting because he said, like, okay, is Felix Sater Mukhtar Ablazoff? No. Is he owned by Mukhtar Ablazoff? And the lawyer had to say, to my knowledge, no. And then he said, is he controlled? See, and that, how would you know? What if Ablazoff has threatened Sater and Sater thinks he's going to kill him? I mean, they are saying that Sater wants to keep his name out of things because he's afraid of whatever from these guys. Sounds like he might control him. But I don't know, that didn't get too much attention. And the other thing that Robert Wolf kept coming back to is he was saying there was a big rush. Every day mattered. They wanted to get this agreement executed. And what I was thinking is, well, why is it such a big rush in 2015? I mean, if they've been looking for this stuff since 2009, the other day, that attorney for the bank said that this started in 2009, but she was hired in 2013. That's where it came up that they couldn't ask her about stuff before 2013, and this guy you can't talk to about after 2015. And so I just don't understand. I mean, if it was like a month after the stuff got stolen, I could understand rushing to sign a contract because you want to find the money before it gets dispersed all over the place, but it's been like 6 years. What's with the rush? It sounded to me like the rush was to get something over on the bank, sign it, sign it, sign it. Anytime somebody is putting on the rush like that, for me, that's when you need to put on the brakes. Why are you so, Mr. Garsky, adding things? Robert Wolf, the attorney, said that there was some back and forth negotiation with this CAA, this confidential assistance agreement. There was some back and forth over a couple of weeks. And also, you got to remember, Wolf is an attorney, but he's not representing anyone in this case. He's appearing as a witness. But he told us yesterday that he has this great friendship with Felix Sater. What is this? He has this great relationship with Felix Sater where he's going on vacation with him and stuff. That sounds unusual to me for your relationship with your attorney. That sounds like somebody who's very close to the attorney. Hey, is this thing similar? Look at these columns. I don't really know what this is. It's just a playground of some kind. So Robert Wolf, he's not representing anybody, but it's different than just like Fannie Willis. Some of the witnesses were pretty stupid, right? They were just like dummies off the street. And my point is, when you're cross-examining a lawyer, particularly one that's been practicing for 41 years and looks as organized and put together as Robert Wolf looks, this is not the first time this guy has ever testified about anything. And he's quite skilled at answering questions in a way that you just can't get to the answer that you want to get to. There's a remarkable amount of stuff that he said he does not have direct, what did he say? I think he said, I don't have independent recall. That's what he said. I can read, yes, this email says what you're talking about, but I don't have independent recollection of that. It was 9 years ago, it was 11 years ago. To be fair, that's true. It's a long time ago. And I mean, he's dealing with a lot of legal cases, so that's fine. So it's basically saying that all of these entities were not controlled by Ablazoff or Krapanov to his knowledge, that he had never met that lawyer, Ms. Nardi. She's the lawyer for the bank. She works for the bank. So she's not like some law firm that's hired by the bank. She is and she also said she's not a litigator. I mean, remember, it's Kazakhstan, so what is a lawyer is maybe a little bit different there, but it seemed like she was some sort of corporate lawyer who's not licensed to like get clients individually and practice law for people, but she does have a law degree and she's a lawyer in Kazakhstan, but not the same way that we have lawyers here. She was not in private practice and she wasn't representing clients and all that kind of thing, but this guy, Robert Wolf, had never met her. And he also said that Arcanum took over the negotiation from Latham and Watkins. Now that seems strange to me, that you're a bank and you hire a law firm to negotiate something and then the intelligence company takes over that thing from the law firm. That's a little bit like kind of stay in your lane. No, you're the law firm. You do the negotiating. We're the intelligence company. We'll do the investigating. But no, they didn't do that. This guy, Garci, he hastily set up the meeting. Big rush, every day mattered, and it was a fluid situation. This is all stuff that Robert Wolf said. He set it up abruptly, something to do with an opportunity in Cyprus. And there was a lot going on. Nicholas Borg needed a release to be a witness. So that's the thing. Felix is saying, oh, hey, I can get you all these witnesses, but they need to sign a release in order to be a witness. It's essentially the civil lawsuit equivalent of a plea deal. And isn't that interesting? We saw that he did that with that woman who is Mariah Carey's, whatever the New York Post said she was, but that was something that was happening with his friend, as was described in that woman's lawsuit that, remember, Felix Sater settled for $50,000. But that was his friend, what was the guy's name? Something Cam? Cam or something? He comes up later. Yeah, Callum Cam. So this guy apparently works for Felix Sater, according to Robert Wolf, the lawyer, and he was definitely his junior. So then they also... So he wanted these guys... See, that's what it sounds like to me, is that the criminals seem to become concerned that the bank might find and prosecute them or sue them for all this money. And so, to me, the only thing that makes this rush such an imperative is that they want the release. That's essentially being granted immunity. Remember, there's no prosecutor here, there's a plaintiff. So if the plaintiff releases you from liability and you sign a thing that says we can never sue you again if whatever, and by the way, that's what all these lawfare assholes are trying to do to me. They always want rulings from the court that say Jason can't talk about Adam Sharp, Jason can't talk about Ben Wittes. There is one person who successfully got that in a different court, and now I can't talk about that person. But that's what these lawfare people, that's a lot of reason for doing lawfare, is to end certain legal situations, to foreclose your ability to do or not do something. And I got a very strong sense that that's what they were trying to do here. This Arcanum company was putting on the pressure to sign this cooperation agreement, another thing that Felix Sater loves to sign. So that's what I mean. This is all stuff that is right up his alley, you know? Just like I'm kind of doing caricatures and animation of myself and other co-hosts and friends who appear on Crowdsource The Truth, that's because my background is in animation and visual effects, and so I'm just kind of always going to do stuff like that. Just like some shitty lawyer who's always into cheating is always going to try to find a way to be shitty and cheat. If I didn't have decades of animation and visual effects background, I probably wouldn't integrate that into my independent news and opinion commentary show on the internet, but because that's how I roll, it's in there. Same thing with these crooked lawyers. So that's my impression. They didn't say that, that hasn't been proven, but I got the impression that they were putting all this pressure on because Arcanum knew who was guilty for stealing this money and figured if we can trick the bank into signing a release for the people that should be sued for billions of dollars, then our problem is solved. So then Wolf went on to talk about how he had dinner with Garci. And it was interesting because Snyder at one point said this is not his witness. So maybe the bank called this guy, but it was a weird situation because he is very sympathetic to Felix Sater. He's not a defense witness, but He's very sympathetic to Sater, A, could be culpable himself if something illegal was done, and I'm not saying that he is, but I just don't know all the facts. And there's also the issue of attorney-client privilege, and that comes up too. So they're talking about a dinner with Garsky on or around June 5th, 2015. And to be fair, it's 9 years ago. You might not remember the details of one particular dinner that you had 9 years ago, but he said yes, he remembers having dinner at the Capitol Grill with Garsky, and it took a little bit to get him to the point where he remembered that Felix Sater was there. And I couldn't help but thinking that he was just skating on the edge of being dishonest. It seemed quite clear that Robert Wolf did not want to talk about that very much. I also mentioned yesterday that in a moment in the men's room, I saw Robert Wolf in there and I asked him if he knew Judge Caproni, and he got uncomfortable and didn't want to talk to me. But Judge Caproni has nothing to do with this case, so I don't know why would he not want to talk about that. It's just sort of general conversation. Now I'm back to having this clicking, but it sounds like a loose wire more than anything. Anyway, so he finally did remember having dinner with Garsky and Felix Sater, and that's where it came out that Robert Wolf does not drink at all. And I believed that when he said that, because if you see a guy, so if he graduates law school when he's 25, goes to college, 22, yeah, 25 when he graduates law school, he starts practice, the guy's 66. He looked good. I think if he had said he was 56, you would have believed it. So he's not drinking, but he did say that Felix Sater and this guy Garsky, more than once, he said they like to drink. And remember, Felix got into trouble in a bar, stabbing a dude in the face with the margarita glass. We've seen he's got poor impulse control even when he's not drunk. But this is a guy who likes to drink. Felix also looks to me like somebody who's recently maybe cut down or eliminated alcohol, because if you look at old pictures of Felix Sater, he's got kind of a puffy, bloated face, like somebody who's drinking several days a week, and now he seems a bit slimmer. And also Matt Gaetz's wife shared a picture of Matt looking like he was in his 30s and drinking a lot, and now I think he's only in his 40s, but Matt Gaetz also has become very fit. And so his wife was, boasting about how attractive her husband is, and it's something to be proud of. He's lost weight, he's getting healthy, whatever. Anyway, enough about that. But the point is, Robert Wolf mentioned several times that these dudes were basically pounding booze at the restaurant. And he had dinner with Garsky and with Felix Sater, and Wolf was not 100% confident about the date, but he remembers the dinner and he remembers meeting Garsky. And that was before the confidential assistance agreement was signed. And he was offering witnesses. Yeah, that came up again. So this is how I formed this impression, just from what is this guy saying, what sticks in his mind about this 9-year-old dinner is the booze and the offering of witnesses. So that was interesting. And then Snyder kept saying, was Felix telling stories, trying to get to, did Felix discuss his magical life working for the CIA? In fact, even Snyder said that. So Snyder says Wolf isn't his witness. And then the Boies Schiller attorney, wasn't Matthew Schwartz talking today? I don't remember this other guy's name, but they have a big team there from Boies Schiller. And so basically Jonathan Snyder, something came up where he's asking him all these stupid questions to Wolf, and the Boies Schiller people objected, and Snyder says Wolf isn't his witness. And Boies Schiller said he's your client's lawyer. So that really sort of encapsulated the weirdness of this, where yeah, he's a defense witness, but he's unusually, he's a witness for the plaintiffs, but he's unusually sympathetic to the defendant, and also seems to be, in my opinion, protecting him. So Sater discussed this guy Borg What was Borg's first name? I forget. But Sater discussed Borg with Arcanum on June 5th, and Borg worked for Krapanov. And the release, oh yeah, this was the other thing that made me think that the release was the most important aspect of it, is that the release was actually completed before the confidential assistance agreement, according to Robert Wolf's testimony. Things needed to move. He repeated that. Why? Did they somehow know that somebody was about to get sued? There's all these lawsuits coming up all over the place in all these different countries. Maybe they knew. And they want releases from the Kazakhstan government, is what he was going for. Okay, so then Snyder shows him what testimony? Slows him down. Snyder was slowing him down. Right. Right. So Robert Wolf started getting on a roll, saying all this stuff that I was like, wow, this doesn't sound so favorable to Felix Sater. And then Snyder said to him, slow down. And that's where I started to think, yeah, this guy is sort of saying a lot of things that don't seem too favorable to Felix Sater. So Snyder says, slow down. We're going to get you out of here more quickly. Right, because remember, Wolf is tense because his wife has this surgery, and so he's primarily thinking about that, which is interesting in retrospect because his mind might be distracted from protecting Felix Sater because he's thinking more about his wife. And you know what? When you're thinking that your wife is going to be pissed if you're late, I don't know what this guy's deal is with how often he's late at the office and how pissed the wife gets about that. But I can tell you firsthand, some wives get very pissed. So he's maybe distracted by that. And then he asks him, right, this is where it came out that Garsky there was a mystery guest involved. And he was asking him, did he tell you who the mystery guest was and all this and that? And the mystery guest was this guy, Callum Cam. Here's all of your Amazon deliveries. Waiting. Wolf knows Callum Cam, but doesn't remember if he was there. And Wolf says that Callum Cam works for Sater and is his sort of assistant or something. And remember, that's the guy who this woman in Brooklyn is saying they made some kind of backdoor to hack her computer. I don't know, I haven't really looked at that other lawsuit too closely, but that got settled very quickly. So was there something that woman had that Felix Sater needed? That's weird, isn't it? Figure out what's making that clicking. Maybe it's just my headphones. And then they had somebody named Boris Danel or Durrell was a potential witness. David Alishkov, FBME Bank in Cyprus. And Sater discussed all these people with Garsky. According to Wolf, he said that he doesn't specifically remember if those people were discussed, but he knows those names. Some of them are associated with this thing called the Flat Hotel. There's a guy named Philippe Glatt. And there was something going on in a Central African Republic. There were sort of all these deals these guys were working on. And Joe Shetry, something like that, he's involved with the Flat Hotel. They just went through all these different names that Wolf basically said, yeah, he knows these names, but this is 11 years ago. He doesn't remember which meetings, which guy was at. That's reasonable. And Peter Darsky, he asked him if he knew who Felix Sater was. And he said yes. And that Wolf told Garsky that Sater controlled Litgo. And he went on to say that they spent quite some time there, as he heard later the next day. So Felix Sater and Garsky are having a big old time getting hammered over at the Capitol Grill, and Wolf hears about it the next day. I mean, he sounds more like he's Felix Sater's friend than attorney, Because remember, yesterday he said that a very, very small portion of his total income came from dealing with Felix Sater, but yet he's going to dinner with the guy, he's going on vacations with him. He spends an awful lot of time with this guy for somebody who seems like not so important to the law practice. And then Darsky died 6 months later in 2016. And he just sort of volunteered. They like to drink. I put that in quotes. Those guys like to drink. Felix likes to talk. He said, because basically Snyder was trying to get him to say that Felix was talking about his time with the CIA. And any time he would remotely go there, the Boys Schiller people would stand up and object. And like before the B in object could get out of their mouth, the judge sustained the objection, because there's obviously been, some designation that you can't talk about any of this CIA stuff. But you see, normally what's happened in Felix Sater's cases is he's done something really reprehensible and bad, but then some lawyer comes along and writes a letter like, oh, actually this guy Robert Wolf has done it several times, comes along and they're like, oh, Felix Sater, he's like James Bond. He's gotten all these, so now the weed stores are back to just being sold out of a chair. But the lawyers basically come along and explain how Felix Sater has made all these great contributions to the United States, saving all these lives, doing all these things that you can't actually verify because they're top secret. No, he's not a criminal scumbag. He's the Russian James Bond, and so go easy on him. And I got the impression that these lawyers for Boys Schiller said none of this crap about what he has done for the United States can come into this case. And that actually makes sense, because even if it's true that he did do all of that stuff, this is a jaw-dropping spectacle, according to USA Today, but they don't really know. I want to see it. Whoa, is Huey Lewis in it? Oh no, that's just all the stars coming. Oh, look at that, it's Michael J. Fox. Huh. And there's Christopher Lloyd. He is looking pretty old. That's cool. That would have been cool to come and see that. But so it makes sense that that Kazakhstan doesn't care what Felix Sater has done to help the United States. So they were super aggressive about clamping down on any mention whatsoever of Snyder trying to get to all this allegedly wonderful stuff that Felix Sater has done for the intelligence community and, according to them, the people of the United States. I don't agree with that. Here he said again, everything was time sensitive. So these guys are just really concerned about getting these releases as quickly as possible. And he said, so in the course of Snyder trying to get Wolf to say something about Sater and all his CIA stuff, I put this in quotes too, because when Wolf said it, I remember thinking that Snyder didn't like it too much, and I wanted to remember exactly what he said. He says, I've known him for a long time. And Snyder asked him if he began speaking about his life and his colorful life, and then they objected. And while it was being objected and, whatever, Wolf just said, Felix likes to talk, sometimes too much. That actually also struck me as something that might not end up in the transcript, because remember, when they get super pissed off in court if you speak over anybody, because this person listening with a little court reporter, what do you call that thing? Transcription, shorthand machine, they will tell you, don't step on the lawyer, don't step on the witness, I can't hear two people talking at once. So maybe Wolf even knew that, and he just sort of injected this, Felix likes to talk, sometimes too much. That also reminded me of my conversation with Felix in the park. Because why would he agree to have that conversation with me? I never thought he would. I didn't think he was going to show up. I don't see what the upside was for him. And obviously, a lot of people have become sort of super upset about some of the things he said to me since then. And so he said that the reason for the rush was that somebody felt that assets could be recovered if they acted quickly. But I didn't quite understand that, because how could they be acting quickly if this all started in 2009 and the meetings that they're talking about are happening in 2015? I don't know. So we got something happening here. Bus doesn't care that something is on fire. Buses are the dumbest. Okay, so everything was time sensitive. He says Arcanum was a global intelligence firm and had been working for Kazakhstan for a long time. That was his impression. I don't know that he ever really established how he knew that, but he said that was his impression as an attorney. And Garsky knew the people Sater was talking about. Sater tells Garsky about working with the CIA, and then they objected. Did Sater tell Garsky about working with the CIA? Objection. Anything about Sater's cooperation is immediately objected to, and the objections were all sustained. This is going to monetize the video because they always... And actually, why do these guys get to make money from, not Mariah Carey, Alicia Keys? I don't know. I'll get dinged for it. So Wolf. Okay, so Wolf said the word cooperation, and the judge objected. I was like, what? But it was quite clear that nobody wanted this being talked about. Sater's role, doing top secret stuff. And then, so the other thing that happened was, it came to this notion of attorney-client privilege. That was when Snyder was done and when Boyce Schiller. Let's get to that. So, Sater is accused of diverting $36 million. And Wolf was negotiating a settlement regarding this $36 million. So apparently it was that Krapanov had told Sater that he was not going to pay him. He basically was telling Sater that he was going to breach the contract and not pay him for all this real estate consulting services, which sounds a lot to me like basically doing nothing and getting money. He's just wheeling and dealing and drinking tons of booze. Does this suitcase hold the gorilla costume? Does that hold the gorilla costume? Doesn't hold the gorilla costume. Yeah, the gorilla costume's too big for that suitcase. Oh my God. The naked grandmother cowboy. She's just totally naked. She's got her boobs hanging out. Literally hanging. Jeez. Crazy.
I know.
So this is what happened. So there was some kind of dispute with this dude Borg. I guess this is the new thing, that you could just be naked in Times Square. Oh, sorry, there. So they got into a dispute with Borg, and now Borg was across the table because he was the CEO of Triadu, which is one of these entities that money was flowing to, part of this network of alleged money laundering. And So now Wolf was representing Sater in a settlement over some kind of problem with 36 million. And 2 years later, Borg contacted Felix because he got screwed by Krapanov, is what they say. So then, this was where we started having the, I don't know, is this redirect or no, I guess this is just cross-examination. Redirect is maybe when it goes back to the first guy, but they called for a break because there was a big dispute about this attorney-client privilege issue. And I found this interesting. This was good insight into the judge's personality and temperament. He was trying to keep the jury kind of occupied while they were working out this thing between the lawyers. And so he said that the Southern District of New York was the first district court in the United States, founded in 1789, and that James Duane was the first judge. And that's how he made a point of saying that's how you get Duane Street and Duane Reade, even though they're all closed, and I think Walgreens bought it. But it was, I don't know, maybe avuncular. More than most other judges, this judge gives the impression that he's a nice guy, which is strange, because normally judges are not. But anyway, oh yeah, and that judge was appointed by George Washington, or his assignment was signed by George Washington, something like that. This was another thing. So Litco had been formed a month before all this was going on, which is another thing that makes it seem like just a shell company to funnel money through, and is also very reminiscent of Brisas Suaves, that company owned by General Flynn's brother, Joe. That was formed like a year before they created their nonprofit, and as far as I can tell, it just never did any business at all other than just getting money from the nonprofit. It's not like General Flynn's brother was an accountant or some kind of guy with a lot of experience doing audits and tracking elections, and there was some special need to hire him. He just sort of started this company. A year later, they created a nonprofit and started funneling money to it. So it seems that's the same thing that happened with Litco. And Wolf doesn't know about Mem Energy or Mendel Mochkin. But actually, it turns out, I spoke to Mendel Mochkin. I thought he was Felix Sater's rabbi, because I've seen this video from the Chabad of maybe Westchester, where it's the rabbi of this Chabad, and it's a ceremony where they're giving Felix Sater the Chabad Man of the Year award, and the rabbi is talking about how Felix Sater is like James Bond, and he went to this whole FBI dinner. The rabbi was Felix Sater's guest at the FBI dinner, and he got an award, and the rabbi is singing Felix Sater's praises. So this guy walks in wearing a yarmulke, or maybe a hat, I don't remember, but super Jewish looking guy. He's got the yarmulke and the beard and the tallis hanging out from his suit. So I thought it was Felix Sater's rabbi. And then after a break, he comes in and sits down right in front of me, and I just said, "Hey, Rabbi," and I started talking to him. And I was like, "You're Felix Sater's rabbi, aren't you? You gave him the Chabad Man of the Year award." And the guy was like, "What? What?" And then Felix Sater walked in, and he says, "Mendel, don't talk to this guy." "Oh yeah, this is this crazy angry guy who doesn't like to show his face. He's been down in the park, and he's got something anti-Israel on there, I'm sure. See videos. That's gonna say like, YouTube is Israel, or whatever it is that he said. I don't know what that guy says. Not interested, thanks. Okay, so now the plaintiffs were questioning him. Wolf represented Felix Sater before he joined the law firm that he's with right now, which is Moses and Singer. And Moses and Singer hasn't represented Felix Sater too much, but they have represented him in the past. Sater took possession of proceeds from this transaction having to do with Tri-County Mall. So basically, this guy, Krapanov, says, "Hey, Felix, this didn't make sense to me either. Why would you tell somebody that they're not going to get their money when they're in a position to take all the money. Felix basically was able to redirect millions of dollars, this $36 million, into some account that he controlled. And on the basis of him saying, these guys owe me this money, and just taking it, Robert Wolf was representing him not in a lawsuit, as far as Wolf said, but in this settlement negotiation. So Sater took possession of the proceeds from the Tri-County Mall transaction after, this was in anticipation of the breach of contract, because he had been told by Krapanov that he's not getting the money. And Wolf said he never dealt with lawyers for Krapanov. Oh yeah, and Sater was so angry that I spoke to Mendel, what's his name, Mendy Mushkin or whatever his name is, Machkin. He was so pissed. For the first time in this trial, he turned around and looked at me with his tough guy look, which I don't think he's that tough a guy. I think he's a fucking asshole who has the FBI and Valerie Caproni doing whatever he wants. So, I mean, certainly if there was a street fight between me and Felix Sater, seems like I would wind up in jail. We've already seen he can stab people in the face, and it leads to him, you know, getting millions and millions of dollars and lots of protection from the courts. So he's a dangerous character in that regard. But I think he needs to go to jail. Everybody around him needs to be brought down. Andrew Weissman, Valerie Caproni, these people all need to be impeached, indicted, incarcerated, and Felix Sater needs to be dry cleaned, as Charles would say. We need to understand exactly what this fucking asshole has been up to for his whole entire life. But he was pissed that I spoke to that guy, Mendel Machkin. This courtroom reeks of something very delicate being set up, and me being there is not part of that plan. I can tell they don't like it at all. Maybe even just talking about all this stuff. In fact, definitely that. I told everybody that they're phishing my father's cell phone, sending him text messages claiming they're from me, trying to trick him into writing back. Didn't work, but they're trying to do that. So, okay, so after Robert Wolf says he didn't deal with lawyers on this, then Boyce Schiller starts bringing up his own emails, and this was the whoa, look out moment. So he's reading this whole email, and it's an email from Robert Wolf, admittedly years ago, but he's like basically threatening these lawyers because the subject of the email is Felix Sater versus whatever his name is, Krapanov and Mukhtar Ablazov, basically sending him a letter that the lawyer for Boyce Schiller said, look, you're basically threatening this guy that you're going to sue him, right? And he's like, well, no, I wouldn't interpret it that way. And he's like, well, the subject, that's the caption of a lawsuit. And then Robert Wolf said, well, there was no lawsuit filed. And he's like, right, because you're writing him a letter threatening a lawsuit. And it became this like battle of the lawyers where you learn a lot about how to not answer questions without committing perjury by sitting there and listening to a 40-year lawyer, 41-year Robert Wolf, explaining to this guy how he didn't just lie. But it seemed very much like Robert Wolf didn't want to talk about this. So BTA lawyer, that's the lawyer from Boyce Schiller, he tells Wolf that you knew it was Krapanov. Now what was he talking about there? Yeah, because he knew that this guy was dealing with a Krapanov entity, or that's what they're trying to get to. Basically, what it seems like to me is that this whole thing was set up to trick the bank into releasing Felix Sater and other people by hiding them behind these shell companies, and now they're busy. You know, there's this line in the contingency there in the agreement that if the thing is a Krapanov entity or an Ablazov entity, they're not getting a release. So now we're in the phase of this where they're arguing about who is or is not a Krapanov or a Blazov entity by the letter of this contract. I mean, I think it's another one of these situations where pretty much seems like everybody knows what happened, but we're busy splitting hairs over whether it's actually going to be enforced. That seems like a relatively new homeless person. She's got clean clothes. So Wolf was dancing around admitting that he knew that this entity was owned by Krapanov, and he's resisting admission that he knew it was Krapanov. This email was with John Baradello for Settlement Communications, and they spoke about how that was written on the email because when lawyers engage in settlement communications, it's another type of privileged communication where you can't trick somebody into a settlement or suggest you're going to have a settlement, and then they say something in the settlement negotiation. You can't go use that against them in the litigation. But this is now a different litigation, and this is a settlement thing from something before. They did not come out and say that they're like, one of the things that attorney-client privilege cannot protect is the crime fraud exception. Your lawyer can't help you do crimes and then not tell the police or the court due to attorney-client privilege. So he's resisting admission. He's got that email. And Krapanov was mentioned in the email sent by Wolf. He claims he doesn't have independent recall of that. He says, yes, I see that here in the email. I mean, he basically was just saying, yeah, okay, you're right. There's an email of me saying all that, but it was 11 years ago and I didn't remember that. And it's sort of like, what can you do? Oh yeah, look, Weed World shut down. I think they're shutting down all of the weed places. So you see, to me, that's stupid. That means somebody said, oh no, people are buying weed. Let's get a lot of cops and stop that. Why don't they do that for the bicycles on the sidewalk and start putting out all kinds of press releases about how you better not do it, and there's going to be a big fine, and you're going to get arrested, and this is a serious crime, people have died, it's not a joke, it's not a game, get off the damn bicycle, get it off the sidewalk. Look, these guys are selling illegal cigarettes and toothpaste. What the hell? I've never seen that before, cigarettes and toothpaste for sale. So at this point, when he said he didn't have independent recall, the tempo was really building. He was saying that it was a veiled threat to expose Krapanov. I don't know, I wrote that down, but I don't know that that registered in my brain when he said that. I'm not sure I understand what the veiled threat or how he was going to expose Krapanov, but that sounds correct. It's like, you know, Felix Sater is this guy who's busy playing both sides against the middle, whether it's the FBI, the Taliban, whatever. He's an absolute pathological liar, in my opinion. And that makes sense to me that he would send a veiled threat through a lawyer to this guy Krapanov. And Wolf, oh, he said in the, yeah, no, I do remember this. So he told him to drop the charade and that the elephant in the room, he's basically telling him that everybody knows that Krapanov controls this entity, and that's what he was threatening to expose, right? So it's like, dude, you wrote this whole email threatening the guy. How do you not remember it? And it was pretty non-believable, but it was just sort of like, you know, when lawyers tell you if you don't want to answer the question, you say, I don't recall, and that was like the professional version of it. Like, I don't have independent recall of that at this moment. I see that it is written here, and I agree with you that that's what it says, but I don't have independent recall of that. And that sort of shuts the door on getting more details on any of that. But there was this other lawyer, Luigi Rosabianca. He represents Triadu, which is another one of these alleged shell companies. And he also said that the Tri-County Mall deal involved Neil Bush. I have to tell Charles about that. He knows a lot about Neil Bush and the other Marvin Bush and stupid Bush brothers and all kinds of dumb stuff that those idiots are up to. So Wolf admits that Sater told him that Krapanov supplied the money for that Tri-County Mall deal. And he was becoming less composed as this line of questioning was going on. He was very calm. I mean, this guy was like the quintessential calm lawyer sitting there in a suit that he looked like he just had tailored for like $5,000, fit perfectly. You know, all these other lawyers, not so much the Boyce Schiller, but it was a very stark contrast, the way that Robert Wolf composes himself and presents himself as compared to Snyder and Tom Sema and the third guy who's representing MEM. Those guys look like schlubs. This guy looks like he's ready for his photograph in Lawyer Monthly or whatever. So that involves Neil Bush. And Wolf claims, then Wolf didn't want to answer because he's saying this is attorney-client privilege. He's asking him about stuff about Sater. Then the room went crazy. So they call a sidebar about this attorney-client privilege thing, and it was the most animated sidebar I have ever seen, because right away, right before they did the sidebar, so Wolf says, oh, that stuff is attorney-client privilege, and then the lawyer, the Boyce Schiller lawyer, says, no, attorney-client privilege has been waived. And then he said, well, it's Felix Sater's privilege to waive, not mine, and blah, blah, blah. So that led to this sidebar. And during the sidebar, you know, what they do is everybody stays in the room and they turn on this really annoying static. So many things about court are just like stupid, and it's like technology invented by Valerie Caproni, like an absolute Luddite idiot. Why don't we have some, just step into a room with the judge? Like, why are you turning on this annoying noise? And you can still see the people. Like, I'm able to look at them. And Snyder was unbelievably animated during this sidebar and raising his voice so much that I couldn't really discern what he was saying, but you could hear his voice, and he was just agitated. So obviously just the whole tempo of the room was raised. And I could hear Snyder over the static. And then Sater was joking with the, so then the judge, there was a moment where the judge left, and then like Sater was in there. Oh, they had a break because they had sent out the jury or whatever. We're waiting for the jury to come back. There's just a moment where the judge was not in the room, and Felix Sater walked over to the podium where the plaintiff's attorney was, and he starts kind of like joking with him, but the body language was quite odd. The attorney was leaning back, trying to kind of be as far away from Sater as he could be in this little 1-foot space, and Sater was kind of, he was joking with him and being funny and everything, but it was just the body language showed that Felix Sater was being aggressive. This attorney knows that this is a guy who has stabbed people in the face. And I mean, obviously we're in a courtroom, you don't necessarily expect that he's going to do anything, but I will admit that when I'm sitting in the edge on the row, on the aisle seat, when Sater and his attorneys walk in, every time they walk in, I am contemplating the possibility that one of them might strike me. So that could be what this lawyer was feeling in that moment where Felix Sater was kind of leaning in on his personal space. And they were arguing over the privilege waiver, and Wolf was getting very tense sitting up there because it was now like 5 minutes to noon and he wanted to be out the door. And they decided that the privilege has been waived. And so then he starts again with, he has no independent recollection of Sater telling him that Krapanov provided the money. So it's like, okay, it's not privileged, but I still don't remember. Felix told him he was entitled to the money, so he took it. It did not come out well when this lawyer was asking Robert Wolf about this. I mean, it's almost like somebody stole the money. Maybe not even almost. He basically just stole this guy's money and then hired a lawyer to negotiate a settlement with him about keeping the money, is what it seemed like to me. And Wolf didn't recall that there were sanctions against Krapanov. Sater sued. No, he didn't. No, he didn't sue him. He was showing him the email, and the subject was Sater v. Krapanov and Blasiev. That's when they got into the whole thing. Okay, so this is where he's reading him the email where he's threatening him and saying, you know, stop the charade, and the elephant in the room is that you provided the money and blah, blah, blah. So he's like refreshing this guy's memory, and he has no independent recall of this threatening email that he wrote. And then he asked him, did you Google this guy, Blasiev? They objected to that because it's too vague, and he said he doesn't remember. Here's another one of these polls. How come it's not giving me radio interference now? Well, it doesn't have that wire, does it, going to another one? And it was only one of those poles that was giving me the radio interference. I don't know what this is. Really don't know. Well, but that was basically it, and then they broke early for lunch because Wolf had to leave. But it didn't seem like it was going the way that the Felix Sater side of the room wanted it to go, at least not to me. So, I don't know. It's hard to say when this case is going to end. And then I also don't even know what happens when it does end. Is Felix Sater going to pay these guys back $36 million? Guy's got no shoes. I don't think you should walk around New York City without shoes. It's a very, very poor idea. Oh. Easy way to hurt your feet. But anyway, I had to leave, so the thing went on. It's still going on right now, but I can't spend all day in there, unfortunately. We will be able to get the transcript at one point. Oh yeah, and while we're talking about court, I got an order today in Goodman versus the City of New York, where without any kind of request from the defendant, the judge or the magistrate has now issued a show cause order as to why these 4 John Doe defendants shouldn't be dismissed because they didn't operate according to them under the color of law. And so now I got more crap to write. And the thing that's weird is the magistrate's order says that, you know, if Jason chooses not to answer this, they're like, okay, you already said this in your complaint, and, you know, the court is going to address that if you choose not to answer this, but show cause. So to me, that would seem to mean, yeah, there's a big effort underway to renovate subway stops, and that's what they're doing here. But it seems to me that the judge wouldn't say this if they were planning on not kicking out those defendants. And so there's got to be a response now written to this show cause order. And that guy was begging to ask me if I'm Jewish, but he wisely saw that I was on the phone here. So, yeah, so we got a show cause order in Goodman v. the City of New York. I mean, to me, there's a lot of evidence that's already been presented. These people are hanging around Elon Musk's security guards. They're hanging around the front door of Twitter with baseballs in their pockets and pens, which to me seem like makeshift weapons that the person could carry around if they're part of the NYPD street crime unit, which tells us that these individuals get hired to gather intelligence, which could be what they consider that. Anyway, the point is, I got to show cause as to why they shouldn't be kicked out. I think that Twitter and the police should be compelled to reveal the identities of those individuals so that they can be served. That's what I think. But anyway, the judge might look at that same evidence and come to a different conclusion because these things haven't been proven in court yet. These are my opinions that I'm sharing, and people who enjoy these opinions, which are not legal advice. I'm not an attorney, not qualified to give legal advice. Holy crap. That's the future of garbage. More of it. Wow. But anyway, don't forget, tonight we're going to have another great episode of John Cullen Investigates. That's a sponsor-exclusive show. So if you're not sponsoring, get on to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Thanks everybody who's sponsoring the show. Very interesting to see what's going to happen to the scumbag Felix Sater.